Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand for the prayer and remain standing for the pledge afterwards. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come here this evening, Father God, just in the great country that we live in, Father. Pray for discernment, Father God. We pray for the men and women fighting overseas for our country. We pray for the leaders of our country, of our state, and of our county, Father God, that you'll just be with them and bless them. We give you all the praise and glory. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. If anyone is here not related to an agenda item and you would like to speak to the board, now is the time. I see no public comment, so we'll move on to the next item, approval of the minutes. You guys will look at that and make a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes for March 10th, 2026.
Motion, do we have a second?
Yep, second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, item 4, new business. Madam Director, take us away.
PowerPoint is not up yet. Will you stick your head in and see if they're ready? So since we will be using an alternate to vote this evening, just remind you guys that you will be voting, but not making any motion. So we'll need a regular member to motion in second. Okay? We'll give them just a second to get us all pulled up here. I promised I turned it in on time.
I believe you.
All right.
Is that the right one?
It is.
Today is not the 7th.
Mm-mm.
Not the right one?
No, this is the commissioners, not LPA. Wrong folder. Should be the one right there under that. One that says 416. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So the items that are companions, if it's okay with you, Gabe, I will present them together.
Please proceed.
All right. So the first 2 applications we have are for ordinance number 2025-26, a small-scale land use amendment with a request of agriculture B to medium-density residential. The companion application is for ordinance number 2025-27, a rezoning with a request of agricultural 7.5 to residential conventional mobile home 0.5. So this parcel is 1 acre. It's owned by Ms. Laverne Dixon. It is off of Ruis Lane in Glen St. Mary. So that is on the very back side of address is Glen St. Mary, but it's the Margaretta area. So if you were to go all the way into 139 sort of stops here, and then Ruis Lane picks up, and it's back here in the back. Do you have a question? No, you look very focused, like you had a question. Okay. So this parcel was created prior to any of our current standards, so we would look at it as a legally non-conforming lot, which means they were able to build on it even though it was 1 acre. But anything outside of just that one buildable lot, they would be required to go through a process to bring it into compliance before they could alter it in any other way. So the applicant's intent here is to bring the parcel into compliance with current standards, and as well as having the ability to place an additional mobile home on the property for a family member. So you can see right now there's one mobile home on the back side of the property, and it would be their intent somewhere on the front side to put an additional mobile home. If you look at the land use and zoning map here, you'll see there's kind of a mix in this area. Immediately on both sides, there's Ag 7.5, one parcel over RCMH 2.5, a mix of low density residential, and then just to the south of this parcel, there are a few pockets of RCMH 0.5 with some medium density residential. And then to the south at the corner of 139, you'll see that orange square there. That is the development that was approved a couple years ago, Catherine Estates, and those are 1 acre lots there. So this area has a mix of smaller lots. A lot of them are legally non-conforming the way that this one is. So a lot of these lots would require some sort of process if they wanted to change or alter the property at all. There was no FEMA flood zones at all touching the parcel. Again, the proposed change would bring the parcel into compliance and allow them to place one more mobile home. And if they were to decide to subdivide the property in any way, an additional process would be required at that point. Given this would bring parcel into compliance, we do have some other similar pockets in the area. Staff recommends approval. And the property owners are here if you have any questions for them.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
We gotten any feedback from anybody in the public after it was posted? Anybody that-
I had 2 phone calls. Both of them were just asking questions as to what was happening. Once I explained what was happening, there were no additional questions. It was
Okay.
just questions. There was no real feedback, just questions.
Yeah, just seen the orange sign, what are you guys doing?
Right, that's pretty much what it was. One of the questions verbatim was, I got this letter in the mail, what does this mean? You know, it was really just those kind of questions.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
No questions
No.
or comments?
Okay. I don't have any questions myself. I mean, if there's no opposition, I mean, I'm sure you reached quite a few addresses given the density of the area.
We did.
There's no opposition in the area. Do you have any public comment? Anybody from the public want to speak? I see none. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to approve ordinance number 2025-26, small-scale land use amendment from Ag B to medium-density residential.
Motion? Do we have a second?
Yep, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That was a companion application, correct, LaDonna?
Yes.
Do we have a motion for the companion?
Yeah, motion to approve ordinance number 2025, TAC 27, rezoning. Ag 7.5 to residential, conventional mobile home, 0.5.
Motion, do we have a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you, sir. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
You guys are on deck tonight. You better pay attention, huh?
The applicant, if you're in the audience, you are free to go.
And we'll see you next week. All right, so the next 2 applications are also companions, so we'll present them together. This is for ordinance number 2026-06, small-scale land use amendment with the request of agriculture B to very low-density residential. The companion is ordinance number 2026-07, a rezoning with the request of agriculture 7.5 to residential conventional mobile home 2.5. So we are actually talking about a couple of different parcels with this application. Unfortunately, the way this map works, it only allows us to select one. So we're talking about this parcel, and this back here as well, this kind of L-shaped piece here. So this property is located off of Warren Thompson Road in Glen St. Mary, which comes off of 139B. There's 52.9 acres total, current land use of agriculture B, zoning of Ag 7.5. Right now, the parcel or the property would be considered conforming. It meets all of the standards now. However, the applicant intends to bring the parcel into compliance for some future use. It is their intention to have a subdivision development proposal as the next step. So this would allow the entitlements for that subdivision development that would come next. So you can see here from the land use zoning and FEMA maps, immediately surrounding this area, there is a mix of Ag 7.5 and Ag 10 with agriculture B and Ag Zone A. I did zoom out just a little bit so that you could see this parcel in relation to 125, and it kind of gave you a broader selection there. So you'll see as you get closer to 125, that density does reduce, and there is multiple pockets of low density residential and medium density residential just to the one side towards 125 there. We have the FEMA map here because there is a portion of this property that the FEMA flood zone comes along. So we always like to show you guys that just so that you have that in relation to the property. So again, the parcel is currently in compliance. This would be to bring into compliance for future use. This is kind of a survey of those. If you were to overlay this onto the map, that's the L-shaped piece that was to the north, and then you have this piece here and this piece here, just to kind of show you how that differs on the survey versus in the in the map there. So with this application, we did have some development review committee comments and some comments from neighboring property owners as well. So the development review comments are in your staff report. So if you were to look at page 2 and 3 of the small scale land use amendment, that's where the DRC comments start. So we had comments from the county manager, fire rescue, and from our public works director. Those comments did not directly relate to the land use and zoning change, but for the potential development, there was concern about the easement that runs along the property here. So if you are looking at the map here, Warren Thompson to this corner here is county maintained. They maintain it up to a certain point, and then it is not county maintained from that point on. So there was some concerns about the potential development of that road, with it being an easement and not already an established public or private road. So We also had, Miss Julie should have given you a letter at the beginning, before we started. So we also received a letter from a neighboring property owner that is along that shared easement. And unfortunately, she's not able to be here tonight, so she asked if I would read her letter to make it part of the public record. It says, "My name is Kate Higginbotham. I am sending this letter because health issues prevent me from attending the LPA meeting. I would like to start by saying this letter is not sent with any hard feelings towards Obi. He is only doing what he does for a living. I own the private road to the parcel of land he is wanting to develop, as well as the land on each side of the road. The original intended use of the easement was to access a single-family dwelling. I do not believe that the road will hold up to 16 more dwellings. I lived on that parcel of land for almost 27 years and the adjoining property where I now reside for almost 16 years. In all fairness to Obi, he has not lived back there very long. He's not seen the storms and hurricanes that can cause the branch to run like a raging river, and after the beavers built a dam at the culvert, blocking the flow of the stream, I believe the road is in even worse shape at the branch. My son Brian was able to get permits from the state to get rid of the beavers. I believe damage was done though. The road is a one-lane road with only one vehicle at a time being able to cross the branch. My late husband, J.D., got the culvert from the steel mill in Baldwin where he worked. Pine Top Forestry Company put the culvert in, replacing the wooden bridge that was previously used to cross the branch. I do not believe that the road nor the culvert would comply with county guidelines. If this development is allowed, there would be an excessive increase to the use of the road, and I strongly oppose it. Thank you for allowing me to be a voice in the matter. Sincerely, Kay Higginbotham." So the culvert that she's talking about, that's the county maintains it up to that point. It's not all the way to the culvert?
There's about a 900-foot easement, culvert about midway.
Okay, I apologize. It is not all the way to the culvert.
It's roughly 450 feet.
Okay, so halfway to the culvert. I apologize, I misspoke. Halfway to the culvert.
Okay.
Okay.
And when we're saying culvert, it is a 6-foot culvert. It's a small little
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
drainage.
it's a
6
culvert. You could walk through it. So then you'll see my comments as well. While the applicant does seem to have the right to use and maintain Warren Thompson within its current capacity, the future development access requirements associated with the subdivision development may result in an unforeseen civil process between the applicant and other property owners along Warren Thompson. So that's just, just looking into the future when we know another application's on the horizon, we try to be open-minded to any potential conflict there could be with that.
And the applicant's aware of that?
The applicant's aware of,
The potential for litigation if this gets approved?
so when the applicant and I had our pre-application meeting, I suggested then that he talk to the surrounding property owners, so. Without us actually being in that process, we can.
Understood. Yeah.
So with that in mind, with that, on the horizon, there is not a reason for us to deny, not a reason for me to recommend denial of the land use and zoning. But there may be some hoops to allow a development of the proposed scope in this area.
I'm sorry, you said with what on the horizon prevents you from?
Just knowing that there is a potential development coming after this, while it meets all of the parameters to approve the land use and zoning, we try to look at that in consideration and make any recommendations of things that may need to happen in between. So we know that this road right now, as it is, there's gonna have to be something done to this road before a subdivision could be developed. So just knowing that that is the next step, we like to mention that at the first step of the process before we get all the way into it.
Makes sense.
And
Forward looking.
there's no surprises when we get to the next step.
Because right now it's 52, call it 53 acres.
Right.
And he's asking to rezone it to RCMH 2.5.
Yes, sir.
So simple math, that's 20 houses, but with setbacks and everything else,
Right.
probably about 16.
Right.
And then putting all that traffic across a non-county maintained road.
Right.
He's gonna have to build that road up and, or work something out to meet subdivision standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that is
Is
a
that-
private road now, correct?
Yes.
Is that the application? That's it?
Yes. Yes.
Presentation good?
That's it.
Okay,
And the property owner is here if you have direct questions for him as well.
perfect. Would you like to go into board comments or see if the applicant has anything you'd like to add?
I have a few. I mean, I can start.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, so my concern is like this. So this is right now is going to be a residential island amongst agricultural land. It calls into question the long-term plan for this area. We talk about spot zoning all the time. So this is changing density, changing land use. Seems to be more of a policy decision about the direction of this area than than anything. With indicating indicated concerns of infrastructure. So I mean those are my concerns with it.
Absolutely.
yeah, and I was looking at the map and zoomed out further. I mean, I think you're
And can
right
you
on the cusp of entering into a extremely rural area, and also being on the verge of extremely dense area. So I mean, I think he's right in the middle.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I zoomed out to 125
Yeah.
so that you could see the proximity to 125.
Yeah.
But it is not directly touching those.
That's right.
Smaller that smaller density either. So.
So could you go back to that map for us, please? All right, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
No, I echo what was already said, that, we're treading into what could be potential litigation down the road. Who's gonna maintain the road? How's it gonna get built out? And like you said, he's between those industrial solar farms there, and then all that stuff over there, so what does he do with that land?
Right.
It's not really big enough to use for any in my opinion, any super profitable farming operations. So I can see where he's trying to go with, turning it into a subdivision, and that just encroaches. Now we've got a subdivision right up against the solar field there.
Yeah, the two sides, in case anyone can't tell from the aerial, the two sides that have the agriculture zone A and the Ag 10, what you see in the aerial there, they're solar farms on those two sides.
How far do we push out on the notices for this one due to the property sizes?
750 square feet.
Isn't there a minimum housing requirement or a
Mm-hmm.
minimum mailbox?
Yeah, we
Got 12.
12?
we get a minimum of 10. We like 15, but
Okay.
a minimum of 10.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
No, this has been a long ways from actually going subdivision. I'm sure there's no proposed plat or anything to look at this time?
We have,
We're
we
just
have.
assuming that's gonna be.
Yeah, we have a
the next
a
one.
very preliminary, we were given a preliminary layout, but very preliminary, no, just
And it was 16 or 17?
Yeah.
All right, let's go with that.
16, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Well, in my opinion, we don't have anything that we can push back on. We can make him aware of it. We've got the letter from Ms. Kay Higginbotham talking about the road and the shape that's in. But if he does come forward after, assuming this passes tonight, he comes forward with the subdivision requirement, he's gonna trip a whole nother set of regulations that he's gonna have to comply with.
Right, yeah, for what we're looking at here, I don't see much reason, like you said,
Yeah.
to push back on what we're voting on tonight. But I would be cautiously optimistic moving forward if subdivision is the route that we're looking to go. I don't know.
Well, that kind
That'd
of.
be up to the owner.
Yeah, it is up to the owner. And that is something that, just me personally speaking, we've been through 3, 4, maybe 5 rural subdivision approvals. And, I'd like to see more infill happen than putting these subdivisions out in Kyler and different other things, but that's just me talking. But it looks like it's about the only option that is gonna make that land of any use. Because farming on that 52 acres, yeah, you can do something, but then you've got, the solar farms there, and then you've got all this housing to the west of it, or east, I guess that is.
Okay. Applicant, would you like to speak? Anything you'd like to add?
I mean,
If you could, if you do, it's a yes or no. If you want to speak, we need you to come to the microphone, to the podium, state your name, and you are the applicant, so we don't need you to fill out a speaker card. Thank you.
Yeah, Obi Dorsey. I hold Kay and Brian in high regard, be absolutely respectful to them in kind of developing this out. Expressed apologies to Brian for not just approaching Kay directly, but I had some health issues myself over the last month or so. So, I know that the road and the culvert will become an issue, but I think it can be addressed properly so that it is handled correctly and is maintained going forward. So,
What would your proposed plan for that challenge be?
I mean, it's got to be explored a little bit further.
Okay.
Got some engineers involved that would help with that, but
Okay.
shared maintenance agreement and so forth. So,
Okay. So, it's, I believe it's been stated tonight that the current easement agreement that's in place would not support the amount of homes. If the zoning goes through and you wanted to put 16 dwellings back there, the current easement in place would not support that access. And so another easement agreement, it sounds like, is going to need to be reached with the property owner because or you have to buy that access.
yeah. Heard.
Furthermore, a subdivision has to touch a county right-of-way. None of your parcels touch a county right-of-way. So I'm curious of how you plan to get there.
Yeah. Kind of the chicken or the egg, right? So both have got to take place in order to make this thing come together.
Okay.
So, in hindsight, maybe I should have approached that first.
Okay.
Here we are.
Would you be opposed to RC 2.5 instead of RCMH 2.5 zoning?
We do not have an RC.
We do not have an RC 2.5.
No, we don't.
Interesting. Your plan is mobile homes or
No, sir.
stick built?
No, stick built, 15 ranchette style. I really don't even need the 2.5 acres. I plan to do, these will come out to be about 5 acres apiece in reality,
Okay.
give or take, depending on how the lots split up.
What's your plan for the interior roadway network?
They've got 3 different kind of options available.
Okay.
Exploring those out, but again, this is kind of the first step.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that our responsibility is to make sure that what's being proposed is consistent
Yeah.
with the change. And based off of the zoning, what's to the east and what's to the west, I think this is a good middle ground. I think you've got some challenges that have been expressed tonight in front of you
Sure.
that you're going to have to address that may or may not, right, be bigger hurdles than others. And so, hopefully with the information that's been brought to light tonight, before this thing gets all the way through the finish line, maybe some of those details can be worked out, right? I think you've got 2 readings with the county commissioners before everything's final. So from a simple, I share the opinion that you guys share from a zoning and land use. I think it's compatible. I think it's consistent. I don't think it's spot zoning. However, I do think if your plan is to develop this into a subdivision, I think that's a way more complex hurdles to jump to make that happen. So that's all I've got. I appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Do we have any other comments from the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none.
Would RC5 be on the table for you?
So I think,
Potentially.
I think the reason that 5 acres,
If some of, you said some of them may be around
some of
5
them were
acres.
gonna be a little less than 5, right, yeah.
Just the
So,
way it lays out.
just the way it laid out, there were some that were gonna be less than 5, and that's why
Okay.
the 5 acre was not considered.
Deed restrictions can be in place to prevent
They
the
can.
MH.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from the board?
So,
Anything on your end?
Oh,
Nope. Good?
no, sir, I'm good.
He said he is just along for the journey tonight, huh?
I'm old enough and wise enough to know, take your time.
I could use that at some point in my life. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to approve ordinance number 2026-06, small scale land use amendment going from Ag B to very low density residential.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, so no, I guess I'll take the moment. I'm not going to second,
Okay.
I think with the road, the right-of-way, the zoning, I believe is more of a policy issue for the commissioners. Going off of what I have here tonight, I can't second that.
So we don't have a second, the motion fails. So do we have another motion?
Well, if 2026-06 fails, then I see no sense in bringing forward 2026-07, the rezoning.
Right. I think he's asking if there's another motion for the.
Denial. If we're not motioning in a
Yeah,
second
they're
for
not
approval, are we
motioning
going to
to
motion for
approve.
denial?
Yeah, so,
Is there a
yeah,
motion
sorry.
for denial?
Yeah, so motion to deny ordinance number 2026-6, small scale land use amendment to Ag B to VLDR.
We have a motion for denial. Do we have a second for denial?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor for denial of the small scale land use amendment? Signify by sounding aye.
All right.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, so the.
And we have a
Chairman?
companion? Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, yes,
if
I'm
I
sorry, you do
may,
need to do the committee minutes.
could you just state, so when the county commissioners see this, that they understand what the policy concerns are?
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I think I've stated it twice, but I'll
Yeah.
summarize. So We have indicated, infrastructure concerns with the road, the right-of-way. Zoning, I personally feel that's a more of a policy direction that falls with the commissioners. So,
How are, it's probably too late for discussion. But I don't know that just because there's a culvert there currently that's functioning and has access, that how are we tying a culvert and a roadway to a land use change? Because that's what we just did.
I think what he's looking at, I think I hate not to speak
Please.
for you, but I think that approach is because while the application is for a land use and zoning change, the reason for the request is for that proposed future development. And at this time, there are hurdles to that future development. And with that being the request, I think that's where he's going with that.
right,
that-
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, just see-
coupled with, there's ideas, right? We have ideas to solve these challenges, but our
Yeah.
job is to make decisions and judgments, recommendations based off of what we know to be true right now, right? So,
But all we're talking is zoning and land use. The fact that of the
Right.
hurdles that are in the future that will be debated and discussed through the subdivision process. That's
Yeah.
when you go through and discuss those items. But simply blinders on zoning and land use. Is the zoning and the land use compatible with the area?
It
Yes
He said he felt like it was.
or no?
It seems like our conversation tonight could have been a lot abbreviated if that was the case, right? I mean,
Agreed.
But
However,
yeah, no.
there's also
So
there's also the fact of wanting to inform applicants of what they don't know.
Sure.
Right. So I think that by trying to give someone as much information as possible about what the future may look like
yeah.
on the path that they're on.
Absolutely.
But with blinders on, looking at is the land use and is the zoning compatible with the area, that is what we're voting on here tonight.
Right, yeah, and as I said previously, an island of residential surrounded by agricultural, I believe, does not fit that definition.
And that was your purpose for a denial.
One of the. Yes.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on the companion rezoning?
Give me a second, let me get the ordinance number. Motion,
Before
Yeah.
you take that motion, Gabe, if you don't mind, would you do a roll call vote for that so that we can give the commissioners
Understood.
an
Sure.
actual number for that?
We're going to go back to the prior motion, do a roll call vote for ordinance number 2026, small scale land use amendment, Ag B to VLDR. The motion was placed on the floor for denial with a second. Roll call vote. Greg, motion.
motion to deny.
You're voting in the affirmative.
Yes. To deny the application.
Deny,
Voting in the affirmative.
correct.
Yep.
Voting in the affirmative. So we have 3 affirmative for the denial.
Okay. I just know that's a question that will be asked for an actual 3 to 1, or however that breaks down. Okay, so now if you'll go into the motion for,
Now we have the rezoning companion, 2025-27 rezoning, Act 7.5 to RCMH .5. What's the motion?
Motion to deny ordinance number 2026 rezoning from Ag 7.5 to residential conventional mobile home RCMH 2.5.
If we may pause for a second for discussion. In the agenda packet, it's listed as ordinance number 2025-27 rezoning. I believe that's supposed to be 2026-27. Could you confirm that, LaDonna?
you're still looking at the ordinance number for the first set? The first set were
Oh,
2025.
I'm scrolled to the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yep. Here we are, 2026-07.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. I am corrected. We have a motion for denial. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of denial signify by sounding aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Dorsey, I believe that's the end of your items. You're free to go, or you can hang around with us if you'd like.
Okay, the next application we have is for ordinance number 2026-08, rezoning request from agriculture 10 to industrial. This property is owned by the Baker County Development Commission. It is actually two parcels. It is this highlighted square here, and it is also this square here. This is off of US 90 in Sanderson, right before you get to one of the prison facilities, kind of across the street from where the Plant AS facility is. It's in that, just past Plant AS, but before you get to the prison there, just to kind of give you an idea of where this is along US 90. So it's 140 acres total. It has a land use of industrial with a zoning of Ag 10. So those would not be compatible land use and zonings. The Development Commission has kind of decided to look at some of their properties, make sure that they are compatible, get them ready for any sort of potential future use. So you may see some other applications coming from them in the near future as well. So the applicant's intent is to bring the parcel into compliance with its land use, as well as prepare the property for any sort of potential economic development interest or uses. When you have a parcel like this that has a land use and a zoning that's not compatible, you can kind of look at it and say, okay, does it make more sense to bring the zoning to meet the land use, or does it make more sense to take the land use to meet the zoning? And in this case, the applicant decided it would be in their best interest to bring the zoning to the land use. So that's what we're looking at this evening. So you'll see here, this area has several pockets of industrial land use already. You'll see these two parcels, and then there are two parcels next to it. And then the industrial piece that you see up here, that is where the Plant AS facility is proposed. You can see from the zoning map that the Plant AS property has already changed its zoning to industrial, but the ones on the south side of US 90, they're all of mixed uses. Their land use and zoning are not compatible with those industrial pieces. So this property does have a decent portion of wetlands on it. You can see, a decent portion of flood zone on it. So you can see, if you're looking at this entire box here, this entire piece would be part of the flood zone. So the Development Commission understands that, and I'm sure when any future use, that's going to be taken into consideration there. So you'll see here, this survey combines the two parcels. So the line that you see separating those two parcels on the other map is actually the section line. The section line runs along here. So you can see that wetland or the flood boundary there. This all would be their easily usable space. Again, the purpose of the application is to bring the zoning into compliance with the land use and get that ready for some sort of future development, whatever that may be. There is an easement along the one side here. That's where the easement lies. Staff recommends approval, and Mr. Dylan Pullman is here. He is the new director of the Chamber of Commerce, if you haven't met him already. So this application comes to you on behalf of him this evening, so.
Thank you so much. Comments from the board?
I am encouraged to see this and looking forward to bookending the county with some industry, so the people that are younger than I, the 18 to 40-year-olds, that we can get some industry in the county that will keep people here and make us a thriving county. So I'm in support of this, but we haven't made a motion.
Very good. Any other comments?
No questions, comments.
It's pretty straightforward. Anything you want to say, Dylan?
Only to say that just for the record, that this property is not in any sort of purchase agreement at the moment. The Development Commission has quite a few properties like this that are just not in current zoning, and so the theory being there's a little bit of delay here in the time that if someone was interested in the property, we've got to go through the public hearing process, and that delay will sometimes cost a project. And so the theory here is just let's bring them into compliance with future land use. If amendments would be required, they would be requested and applied for. But let's bring all of the Development Commissioner's properties into industrial, not heavy industrial, just your industrial, just to speed up the process a little bit. And then, of course, when those projects were looking, they would be announced, and depending on what they were asking for or needing, it may come back before the LPA category commissioners. There is some backstops there.
Sure.
When somebody's interested.
Very good.
This application would just bring the two into compliance if they had a future project that, of course, did not meet that general industrial zoning. If it required something more intensive than that at that time it would have to come back and
Sure.
go back through.
Understood. Pleasure of the board. Do we have any public comment on this item? None? What's the pleasure of the board?
I move to approve ordinance number 2026-08, rezoning from Ag 10 to industrial as submitted.
Have a
Second.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The last thing that we have for you, it is a subdivision application with a companion variance, so we'll kind of present those together. This application for subdivision development, you guys actually saw last month as well, and there were some questions that had arose. So this is our updated version. This property is off of Carl Brown Road, the corner of Carl Brown Road and Seminole. The parcel altogether is 71.92 acres with a current land use of Agriculture B, a current zoning of Ag 7.5. So right now this property is made up of two subdivision lots within the Lon Rollerson subdivision. So that subdivision was approved back in 2003, but they never went through the platting process. So the development itself was approved, but the lots were not platted. So when we have situations like that, the county looks at them as an unrecorded subdivision. So it is still an approved development, but they did not go through that platting recording process. So the applicant intends to subdivide one of those lots and record 3 platted subdivision lots out of that one lot. And then, those lots could be sold to be developed by, individuals. So to show you, I'm going to skip and come back. To show you what those lots look like, it is this lot here and then this large lot here. So that's what we're looking at. This is Carl Brown. This is where Seminole comes along here. So the applicant owns this lot and this lot, but they are together as one parcel for taxing purposes. So when we say 2 lots, that lot line is about right here. The proposed lots would come out of this middle section here. So you'll see the land use and zoning, for the most part all around, is Ag 7.5 and Ag Zone A, or Ag Zone B, I'm sorry. The flood zone does not really touch this parcel, but it comes very, very close, so we like to show, we kind of like to show you that information. So again, it's two subdivision lots that were approved before but not recorded. You'll see on the survey, this is the smaller of the two lots. This is the larger of the two lots, and this is where those three lots would come out of it. Altogether, we would be looking at creating 3 more lots. Each would contain 7.5 acres for a total of 22.5 acres that's actually being subdivided out of the applicant's 71.92 acres. There were some, like we discussed last time, some concerns about Seminole Lane. Specifically from our fire chief, he had some concerns about the road. After talking with the fire chief, the road department, and general counsel, on the surface, we recommend denial because technically they do not meet all of those design standards within a subdivision. After talking with general counsel, applications like this in the past, we have seen with adding a companion variance to them, you can request a variance for design standards within a subdivision. So with a subdivision application that is lacking in a design standard, if you add a variance for relief of that design standard, the two of them together would be looked at as a complete application. So in your staff reports, I added some additional information from last meeting. So I actually added the road verbiage in there, so you can see on page 4 how that verbiage lays out as far as access, direct paved road access within a subdivision. And then you will see on page 9, there is a section there. All development will comply with applicable design standards of this chapter unless a variance is approved as set in this article. So then the next portion you'll see is the procedure for a variance for design standards. So is that again together those two would be a completed application. With a relief of design standard for the paved road and county road access, that would alleviate the denial for not meeting all standards. So I know that is a lot. If you look at the second application, which is the variance application, it is laid out on page 7. How we handle variances to subdivision regulations, and those, while we've discussed previously, subdivisions kind of stopped with LPA now. When we have a companion variance, or if we are asking for exemptions to any subdivision requirements, those do require commissioner approval. So while if this application was just a subdivision application, you guys would be the final authority on that. Since we do have a companion variance of those design standards, it does have to go to the board for approval. So in this case, you would be making a recommendation of approval or denial on both applications, and then those will go to the board for their meeting cycle. In this instance, Seminole Lane would remain a private road. If approved, it would remain a private road, and it would be continued to be maintained by the surrounding property owners the way that it is now. We did not have any feedback from any of the neighbors in the area. We have not had any conversations with anyone other than just basic, a few people having basic questions, but no one in opposition or for, either way, so.
So, Mr. Chair, through you to Madam Director.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what we're saying here and what we talked about last month, I understand Trevor's concerns, as fire chief. But are we not saying that if the variance is not there and we say that either it's denied or let's say we approve it, okay? Or in the original intent, were we not saying that we needed to pave that access to those 3 lots
Yes.
on a private road, but then that would be paved access coming off of a county dirt road onto a paved road and then back onto another county maintained dirt road?
It would. In order to meet subdivision road requirements as they're laid out, that is what that would look like.
Yes, so
You
we would be going
You would
from-
be paving to a county road, so you would have an unpaved county road, a strip of paved road to these lots, and then you would have a paved road with dirt road on both sides. If
Yes, so it would be
going by our current standards. Yes.
Understood, yeah.
Yes.
And so our ordinance says it needs to be paved, but now I've bookended those 3 lots. I've came in, put millings down, whatever. I've got a paved section, but both ends of the county are dirt road.
Right.
Okay.
But Seminole is still private,
Seminole is still private.
so these lots will not touch a county right
They
of way.
will not. They will not.
And that's what the variance is.
The variance is
Directed
for
at.
relief of the road design standards,
Right.
being the paving of the road and the requirement of county maintenance.
And that variance would then allow permitting, building
Yes.
authorization. So there's not been any, like, use agreement, maintenance agreement, anything like that?
So
That's-
there's already an existing agreement with the other property owners along Seminole. So they maintain that road themselves.
But adding more homes, that, we assume this is going to fall into that agreement?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So to summarize that, if we approve the variance, we're saying no paving, but it needs to be maintained within that subdivision by those homeowners.
Yes.
And to Trevor's point, that the road should be improved to accommodate firefighting equipment.
Mhm.
So then whoever would move in there, their portion of that road would be their fee to help maintain that section of the road. Right.
No, that's just
Well-
a recommendation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And again, that's what the variance is eliminating,
Yeah.
that requirement.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the intent of the applicant to have the end user build the road? He's just, whoever develops the lots or builds the homes, they're gonna be the ones responsible for the road?
I'm not tracking this.
I believe I remember that from the last hearing.
If changes were, I think it was discussed, if changes were required.
Okay.
Then yes, that would have been his intent.
Okay.
But with this proposal, there would not be any proposed changes to the road.
Because Seminole runs past these lots.
It does.
It continues and extends.
It continues past, yes.
Got it.
I think there was some conversation at the first meeting about if a new road was built and Seminole was not used for access, that cost is, I think, what we were discussing. But I could be,
I think it's a slippery slope, allowing lots off of a privately maintained road. What do we open up? What can of worms are we opening here by allowing this? we fought and drew a line in the sand of, look, you okay, maybe you don't maintain it, but you've got to put something better than dirt. You know, it is held to a higher standard than just a dirt road if the county's not going to maintain it or own it. And so my concern is what can of worms are we opening by allowing lot development off of private roads? Who else in the county is now going to say, oh, I have a 20-acre tract back here. Let me go. I've already got the zoning. I've got a 20-acre tract, and I've got 5-acre zoning already. I don't even need to go get rezoned. I just need to go get a variance. And I can now throw up some lots at the end of this privately maintained road that is terrible for emergency vehicles to travel down.
And that's a valid point, and this is the thing that we've struggled with as an LPA, and I'd like to see us get into more detail as a board to talk about what are we going to do about roads, and how are we going to standardize that. I think the original intent of the subdivision ordinance was so the county did not have to maintain roads, so that there was something there. And when Jimmy Bennett was around, he said, all roads in a subdivision, the county doesn't want to take responsibility for those. Those should be all private within that subdivision.
Right.
But our ordinance says you must meet a county road. And that's why you got the racetrack. If you look at County Road 125, all the new construction was all built with curb cuts on 125 because of the way the ordinance was. I don't like driving that road anymore. It would have been nice if the subdivision were back deep and just have one curb cut go in and around. But then to tell a landowner that, to me, it's a bit nonsensical. It's just where we're at, that you have to pave 3 lots. You're going to come off of a county maintained dirt road. Now you have to have paved and have a paved road for these 3 lots that then you're going to exit and then come onto another county maintained road. So my thing is there needs to be some kind of workshop on roads and subdivisions.
Yeah, the growth is coming this way. There's no
Yes,
doubt.
we need to nail this one down.
But
Because-
again, there's quite a few private roads that luckily we're in a drought right now. But if things return to normal and roads, become washed out and muddy and a challenge to traverse, what are we allowing here? So that's the only. I mean, I get the variance. I get I don't personally see an issue with the size of the lot. I think it's compatible with the area. I just don't. I'm afraid of what this is. What other applications? When's the last time we seen a variance to do this? And I've been sitting on this board, Greg. You and I have been on this board for a long time. When's the last time we had a variance to allow this right here?
Well, I mean, when's the last time you've seen this situation, though?
All the time. Well,
I haven't seen this in the almost 2 years I've been
Not
been
with
here.
the book ending of the page. That kind of throws a wrench in it. I mean, it don't
Yeah.
make common sense to do that,
No,
in my opinion.
because all we're
And-
doing then is just enforcing and I got Gabe's point.
It makes it-
We don't want to open up Pandora's box. But at the same time, paving in between 2 county maintained roads just to meet the letter of the requirement, I think.
I've
can we
always
restrict the variance just to this one and then say, before we do anything else, we have a
Well,
consensus.
a variance is based on the application, so every variance is different, so.
Right. But to Gabe's point, we need to be objective and have a strict criteria of what we're approving, disapproving, and why.
Yeah.
Right.
And, this one is just because of the way our ordinances are written.
And I will say, when we do have variances and variances are approved, when we issued those approvals, there's detail in that approval letter of exactly the variance that was approved. So, like when you guys have seen variances before that were, if it was a setback relief and they were asking for us to lessen their setback by 5 feet, it is stated in their 5 feet. Anything other than that, you're going through the process again. So that is listed in the variance, that the specific things that they are getting relief of. So we couldn't really say, that no one else could ask for that type of
Right.
variance. But just that each variance is its own.
Discussed on its own
Right.
merits, yeah.
Right. It would have to have a companion application that matched this in order for it to be the same request. But that doesn't mean that we're not gonna see that.
What stops someone
Right.
who has a
Right.
lot that's from a subdivision,
Right,
that's on a private road, from coming in here and doing the same thing?
right.
Double it, triple it,
Mhm.
quadruple it. What
You're gonna
stops?
see that, but I think
What stops them?
every situation's a little bit different.
Okay.
Well, there's that, but I
You're
think.
gonna see more of
Whoops,
that
sorry.
because of this.
I
agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, are you setting precedents?
I just don't feel like there's a one-size-fits-all approach to that. I don't think you deny everyone because of it. I don't think you approve everyone, just.
So what's the
from
criteria for
written.
denial and approval?
Well, that, Gabe, I think is what we should sit down with in our comp plan and nail that down, because we know what we have now is just causing curb cuts up and down the county.
I think
We've got
there's a clear
subdivision. Huh?
If there's a clear-cut criteria, you don't need us, you don't need county commissioners. But I don't think, that's a reason that we have a board to vote on things. If
Yeah.
everything was that black and white,
I
what are we here for?
disagree. I mean,
We can all
it's
read.
very clear, black and white, of what you
Pardon?
need to do to have a subdivision. It is very clear, the criteria, but yet you still have to present the application to the board.
Yeah, so in this case, guys, we're adding 3 homes to an existing road with a maintenance plan in place that they're falling into. They're bringing more traffic, but they're also bringing more contribution to maintaining that road.
How is that? Have we seen that agreement?
Well, no, we haven't.
We haven't seen that agreement yet. no.
Right.
Okay. So is there an agreement?
I've been
There-
told
there-
yes.
Yes, there would be an agreement.
There would be,
but-
okay. But we haven't seen that.
Right.
Okay. The variance can be conditioned upon that?
Yeah, the variance approval could be contingent upon those relief of those design standards, with a written maintenance agreement, yeah.
So, and that just points to my ignorance on privately owned roads. Is that not a standard? Like when you have a privately owned road with multiple homes, is that not just a standard?
It's not.
There's going to be
Unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
A lot of times it is just strictly an easement that runs in there. It's a good mix. There are some that have a road maintenance easement or a road maintenance agreement. There are some that, we have a lot of private roads that are in, within communities that have some sort of, HOA or fund that pays for the maintenance of that road. And then we have a lot that are just easements that run along and it's not really maintained. Or one property owner along the road will maintain it, but there's no written agreement to it.
So 2 examples of that. One would be Tennessee Street out off Cowpen. All those homeowners in there, they moved in. Road was not maintained. The guys up front were like, I'm not using the back end of the road, so why do I need to pay for it? Guys in the back are saying, hey, we need to fix this. And then you've got Glen Nursery, which is also private road in there, but all the homeowners agree to maintain their road to a certain standard. So we're back and forth as far as the board.
Yeah, there's really not a, there's not a cookie cutter for that. They're all a little different.
But
so.
could we not come up with standards that say we approve a variance and we say, here's the standard that the road needs to be maintained in, so buyer beware and seller understand that you're selling this to these property owners and that here's the minimum, it's not a paved road, but here's the minimum standard that we need to have for a road, which is, I think, where Trevor's going with it.
Our problem is with enforcement of that on a private road.
True.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak? If you could, come on up, sir. Just state your name, address for the record, please.
My name is Reed Tillis. I live at 10483 Flintlock Drive, Sanderson, Florida, 32087. I bought this property 22 years ago, and it was at the end of a subdivision called Seminole Ridge. And all those homes that are in there are on privately maintained roads. And my actual property was not part of that subdivision. But it's a close-knit neighborhood that we all got together and we elected people to maintain the roads, the private roads. The roads that Trevor Nelson, or whatever, the fire chief, has a problem with. I don't think he's seen it. I don't think he's seen the road. I don't think anybody's gone out there. We've done this for 20 years. We've got backhoes, we've got tractors, we've got all the equipment we need. We've got guys that like to get together and we maintain the road. No one has seen it. Have y'all seen
It's
it?
been a while.
Have you? Did you go out there and look?
We put the signs out there.
Okay, all right, okay. I was elected as part of that group that we would maintain. I asked my county commissioner if he would give me 15 minutes to pick him up at his front door and drive him to the corner of Carl Brown Road and Seminole Lane. And I wanted him to drive to the road with me and see it. And he said he would. He would meet me Monday, 6 o'clock. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I've asked and maintained with everybody. I don't want to do anything that's not right. But I know what it takes to maintain the roads because we do it. I told you all about the road that the road department built on my property. Robert Fletcher, I think it was 2018. We had 2 hurricanes come through there and it destroyed Carl Brown and Penderollerson. So they came onto my property to dig a pond for me to get the sand that they needed to put the road in on my property that's either Carl Brown Road or Seminole privately maintained. There's plenty of room for any trucks, dump trucks. I went and asked the guy that graded the road for 6 weeks when we did it in 2018. He was on my property every day, 5 days a week, grading the road at the end of the day so that those dump trucks could come and go, okay? I'm gonna drive my county commissioner down all those roads. There's Cherokee, there's Flintlock, there's Tomahawk, there's Seminole Lane. We've got that under control. And now I'm trying to sell property on my own property, and the guy's got a road to drive to. We can maintain Seminole Lane. We do it. We've been putting rocks down now. We've moved up to where it's rocks. And all I've got to do is have that county commissioner in my truck and me not say a word to him, and me just drive the roads. And all those people moved into that. They're on dirt roads. They're privately maintained roads. We don't have a problem. It's not a one-size-fits-all. This isn't a city. This is a bunch of back roads, woods, and I take pride in it. I take pride in the work that we do in those in the roads that we maintain. The guy that's trying to buy my property, I'm committed to him. And I just, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not ignorant. You know, I got an MBA, but I don't know what you are doing. You know, one size doesn't fit all. Between the private roads, there's different problems that you come up to. You know, I've been trying to get it done, and I just can't believe it's so difficult. But again, on the last meeting, I told you I was a whipping boy. This county's got problems, and it seems like it's all coming to a head with me. Y'all been putting private roads in forever. You know? That's all I got to say.
There's rules that we have to follow. And here we are, trying to do our best to follow those rules.
I do understand that.
And the rule says you cannot subdivide that land if those lots do not touch a county right-of-way. That's what the rule says. I didn't create the rule, didn't invent the rule.
So where did that leave us with our conversation?
It's where the application for a subdivision, we don't meet those requirements. And so to get creative, we're trying to
Right, and
come
you
in here with a
explained that to me,
variance.
And I
Yep.
understood that.
Yep.
It sounds like it hit a dead end somewhere here. I mean, it seemed like you guys maybe were born and raised here. You know, maybe you know, I don't know. But it seems like they didn't have a problem with it.
I mean,
We haven't voted yet.
we haven't voted, we haven't taken a motion, we haven't done anything. We're having general
See,
conversation.
That is my ignorance. I don't know.
Yeah.
Y'all do this every
There are 4 different opinions up here, and I promise you, we all don't have the same one.
Okay. Okay. It's
But when it comes to a variance, it's subjective. It's opinionated. It isn't black, it isn't white, there isn't a rule, it isn't a law.
I just know that when my county commissioner takes that 5-minute ride, 10-minute ride, he's gonna say this is much ado about nothing. You know, for me individually. But again, I'm the lightning rod,
Yep.
the whipping boy, and y'all are having a workshop after the fact. you
Yeah,
know?
I think that
And I'm not trying to throw barbs.
listen,
I'm not.
we have to do the best that we can do
I'm
to
frustrated.
protect the interests of the county. And I can load up that same commissioner, and I can go ride him around private roads that you need a 4-wheel drive to get down. So luckily, you guys have the people, you guys have the resources, and you are able to maintain that roadway.
Yes.
Kudos, congratulations. There are people who don't. So how do I sit here in this seat and tell someone who comes and does the same thing that you're trying to do somewhere else where they don't do that, but everything else is the same? You know, how do I justify telling them no and telling you yes? That's what I have to sleep with, and that's what I have to live with, and that's the decision that I have to make, sitting in the seat. That's what I signed up for.
To your point, I agree with that, and Mr. Tillis won't be around forever to maintain that road, right? If somebody sells this property, or the other neighbors, they're not gonna be around, equipment gets sold. Well, who's to say in 10 years that road's not maintained at all anymore? But at the same time, you've got property that you're wanting to sell or subdivide. It's within the zoning, you're requesting a variance for getting around the paved road. And at that point, I think, if the variance is approved, that's a buyer beware. Buyer, do your due diligence. Here's a road that doesn't have a written agreement.
Yeah.
But
And we all
to your
did-
point
I
earlier
guess we
about the
signed
weather,
up for that.
it's dry
We
right
went
now.
down
If
there.
it gets wet later on, the buyer, the seller's property's
Yeah,
a little bit less valuable. But in this case, I don't.
Correct. And I think that with the community that's there now, I don't think there's an issue
Not gonna
with
be
any
an issue.
buyer. There shouldn't be a
Anytime soon, I
buyer.
don't think.
The issue is telling someone else no after we've told Mr. Tillis yes. And creating that justification. That's all.
So I've got a question.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Tillis?
No, sir.
Thank you for
I
coming.
tried the best I could.
Understood. Thank you.
So on this variance, can we put a stipulation in there that Seminole Ridge Property Owners Association, with whoever these future people are, will sign up for some road maintenance agreement?
That's an ask.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, we
it's an
can, we
ask.
can ask that, yes, that they be part, and I think that's their intention, is to make them part of the same,
Right.
yes.
And it did work in our case, in our neighborhood.
Right.
It worked.
And I
Yeah.
think that is the intention, to add these into that existing agreement.
That agreement's informal now. So I think the takeaway, if this variance passes, make that a formal thing to live beyond you, beyond the people involved now. That's a formal document that's transferred to buyers in the future.
We do have a homeowners association there.
Yeah.
Mr. Tillis, I need you to come to the microphone if you're going to speak.
Yeah, what's there now is written, it's a matter of adding these to that written agreement
Right,
that
which-
exists.
Which they're not. You and the current people maintaining that road are not part of that homeowners association?
No,
Is that
we
what-
are.
Oh, okay.
We are.
Right.
We are the homeowners association.
Okay.
And of the members that are there in those 16 lots, if that's the correct number, it's around 16, they voted. They voted me and my wife in, and then they all voted on, and I forget, we've got a lead and we've got an assistant, and we all agreed that 4 of us would take care of the roads, and that's what we do. That's what we do.
And then if these 3 newcomers come in, then they become part of that maintenance agreement, either through effort or in kind, or they bring their own tractors or box blades or what have you.
I've got
That's the
videos,
intent.
I've got pictures. People pull together and people get things done.
Yes.
And I'm fortunate enough to live in an area.
So there's
where
an
we're doing that.
HOA for this community.
So let me show you so the HOA that he's talking about, if you look,
All those-
it is on this side. His property was not part of this community, but he came to an agreement and he added into this community to be part of their HOA for road maintenance.
It's a road split, too.
So that the HOA is for this community beside it, not actually the community that he was part of. But as he said, he made his lots part of their community.
And it's
They-
going to
because
do
they
that with
had
the
an
additional
HOA
3
Because
lots.
they had an HOA.
And the additional 3 lots are gonna do the same.
That's the intent. That's my understanding. That's the intent. And so we're seeking a variance to avoid having to put in paved road between 2 dirt roads, and to avoid that, to grant the variance, we're saying that those new 3 lots will be part of that Seminole Ridge Property Owners Group, or whatever they're called. That's my understanding.
Good.
But again, this goes back to what Gabe was saying, are we setting a precedence here? And how do we avoid that? And so, Gabe, from me through you to Madam Director, I'd like to see some kind of county workshop on this stuff soon. We're going through our comp plan now, and let's set something, Gabe. I know it can't be black and white, guys, I understand that. But let's set some standards for our roads, so when we come up against this next time, there's a variance granted, okay, we'll grant the variance based on this road construction methodology or whatever, or if there's no variance granted, then you have to comply with the letter of the law. Because we're getting more and more of these rural subdivisions. We got them out there in 23A at north of me, out by Kyler, out that way. Just right in my quote-unquote neighborhood. They're off of Leon Dodson. They're in there cutting the timber off of all that stuff that we approved a few months ago. And that's all gonna, but those are, every one of those houses there come out on County Road 124. All right, I'm done with my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Tillis. Okay. So first before us is an application for subdivision. Staff recommends denial. What's the pleasure of the board?
A motion to approve. I guess subdivision. I don't know how we're identifying that.
Well, could I ask a question?
Yeah, we can have conversation.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, we can have conversation, discussion.
So, do we need to deny it if we think we're going to approve the variance?
You could approve contingent on the variance.
I'm sorry?
You could recommend to approve contingent on the variance. So this isn't, so like with the land use and zoning, you can't, you can't put conditions on land use and zoning, but on a subdivision application, it could be contingent on approval of the variance.
So if you deny the subdivision, the variance is obsolete.
Yes.
Right. So you have to approve the subdivision if you intend on approving the variance.
All right, what was the motion again?
Let's try.
I motion to approve the subdivision for development review.
Second, to approve, or to move it forward?
So discussion. So we are recommending approval of the subdivision.
Contingent on,
I didn't hear any contingencies.
Okay,
I
contingent on
didn't
the
hear any
variance.
contingencies in the motion, and so what we're about to get ready to approve a subdivision that doesn't meet the letter of the law.
Okay.
Right, so yeah.
just-
but-
good.
Motion to approve the subdivision for development review contingent on the complementary variance.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Now, on that variance, where the recommendation was in there, can we amend that to include language in there that those new homeowners become part of that Seminole Ridge?
Yes.
We can put the ask in there?
yes.
Okay, that way we've got enforcement procedure from us, so if they don't, then Reed would come back to you and say, what's going on? We, extended ourselves, but then those homeowners, it's buyer beware, they understand that they can drive through, see the roads as they're maintained now. You want country style living or country squire, if you wanna call it that, you have to put in your piece too.
Right. Okay. We can do that.
And then again, I know.
But you can't enforce that. It's unenforceable, right? You were just saying if it doesn't get maintained, right?
Yeah, we can't,
So it goes through and it gets approved. They issue building permit. Someone slaps a building up, and if they don't follow the agreement, what's the recourse?
That's the risk of any private road.
Yeah.
So we cannot regulate or enforce the maintenance of a private road. So by approving the variance, contingent on them going into that road maintenance agreement. At that point, it becomes a civil matter. So if the road is not enforced, it is up to the neighboring property owners to go through a civil process to enforce that agreement. We can't enforce that agreement.
Yeah,
So
that makes
it
sense.
would
And
be a- it would
that's
be a
kind of where I
civil-
figured it would go.
Yeah, it would be a
Yes.
civil property
It would be
matter
a
at that point.
civil matter at
Yes.
that point in time.
Yes.
So the only thing we're adding to the variance is just seeking relief from the subdivision requirements.
Yes, specifically, road design standards, for paving and county maintenance.
It's a pleasure of the board.
I'm in favor.
Yeah, motion to approve variance.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Right.
All opposed? Motion carries.
But I would still take your county commissioner out there and others.
Say it again?
I said I would still take your county commissioner out there and show them the roads.
Yeah.
And maybe ask Trevor if he can join you.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
Ms. LaDonna.
Yes, so that is the last application. we
Appreciate
have.
that. Brings us to agenda item number 5. Do you have any board comments?
Board comments, yes, how are we coming along with the comp plan? When are we gonna have public hearings on that? I've got a lot of people calling me saying, hey, I know the comp plan's out there being worked on, when are you guys gonna get this done? You know, a lot of
So-
folks watch it online, they see the whole thing going on with the roads.
Yep, so we're still working on putting all that together. You're gonna see a meeting soon to see all of the public input. We still got those surveys out there and things like that, still taking in that information. I will say, I think overall, we need some education, some public education on what our comprehensive plan entails. I think there's a lot of confusion as to what is part of the comprehensive plan and what is part of our land development regulations. And there are some details and some changes that I think people want to see that are not part of the comprehensive plan changes. They're part of the land development regulations. And so you have to change those the comprehensive plan before you change your land development regulations.
I agree with you there, but I think there's also, you know, if you pay attention to some of the chatter around town, people are saying, oh, we're growing so big, you know, what, here I go again, but, you know, what is our urban growth boundaries? Where do we want to concentrate the growth? And where do we want to keep things?
And that sort of stuff is more on the comprehensive plan side.
Yeah.
But a lot of the details that people are questioning and looking at are in those land development regulations. So I just think maybe we need to put some education out there to explain the difference between the two so that people understand we have to do one part before we can do the other part.
And you're just taking that charrette, that's the only public input we're having? We're not gonna have an open forum meeting or anything like that?
So that depends on how much input we get from the public charrette. So we're still, all of those surveys and stuff are still open and people are still doing them.
Okay, that's good to know, because
yes.
a lot of folks figured it was one day deal, it's over, it's done.
Yeah, no,
Where do I go talk?
No, we've been sharing those. People are still doing them. We have, there's still regular conversations happening with that
Okay.
information.
Maybe back out there on your webpage, you put
There's
that
still
QR code or
participation,
something.
so, yeah, we'll send that out again. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that I've talked to, they thought it was over and done once you guys were done with that meeting
Okay.
up there.
We can push that out on social media to make sure that people know that
Yeah.
it's still ongoing.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, sir.
You have anything else?
No, sir.
Nate?
Nothing.
Jack? It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Look forward to many more.
Thank you very much.
It's a 20-year requirement if you didn't know that. I'm
I
just-
promise 12.
All right. Staff comments?
So my only two things, last board meeting, Gabe and Greg, you were both up for reappointment. Your 3-year term was up for reappointment. So that was on the last agenda, and that was approved, so we're stuck with you both for another 3
All right,
years.
Gabe, here we go.
You know, and then, my second comment was just to welcome Mr. Chandler and, introduce formally. He is our new alternate and will be joining us and, part of our excitement here.
I'm the
so.
seventh man.
There you go, there you go.
Good. Glad to have you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for volunteering. I don't have anything tonight, so with that, meeting adjourned.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.